Hello, YouTube fans, here again. And now I'm talking a lot about Steven Spielberg. I'll jump into 1985 to 1987. And people want to know what I mean by that. I'm on about a TV series. I'm more or less going to talk about all the series and then to a later date talk about the series itself, episode per episode. And be what I'm on about Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. That's right, Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. It's an authority series that Steven Spielberg did back in 85, right into 1987. And sometimes you have an adventure story, sometimes you get a horror story, sometimes you get a romantic story, a comedy, oh, the list goes on, so don't go around the houses. And it was a TV series, like I say, come out bit of the 80s to the later 80s. And sad to say, it wasn't as successful as some. This was like done, before you had authority souls, let's say like horror authority souls, let's say like Tales from the Crypt. I can't say before because we had Tales from the Dark Side that come out in 83, right to the later this. But sad to say, Steven Spielberg's amazing stories, it didn't last that long. It wasn't as successful as most authority souls were, but it did last over 2 seasons. It had 2 series, let's say. They had 2 series of Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. There's some I can look at now and I'm thinking, some are okay, some have not aged very well, some I actually enjoy, and that's where I'm going to get to. There's some I enjoy, some I could take it or leave it, some I avoid like an STD, and some I actually like. And I always remember the music do it. It goes do 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 do. I'm not gonna do the rest, but it was a fun show back in its day. I remember this is going back a bit. My mum, bless her, she used to rent me all the videos back in those days, and she used to rent me Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. And I think at the time, Steven Spielberg, with his big success when he worked with, I can't think of his bloody name, it'll come to me, I'll get it, offensive error. George Lucas, I can forget his name, Star Wars, when he did George Lucas, and he worked with George Lucas on the Indiana Joneses. I love the music, and it feels like that indie sort of feel, which I think he did an episode like that. And so there was some I like. There was some what Dana reminds me actually. Dana reminds me of the new Twilight Zone. If anyone remembers the new Twilight Zone, there's a few what reminds me of that. There was a few what reminds me of other authority souls. But look at that time, Steven Spielberg, he wanted to go into doing TV souls for some well-known producers and that did that. But it's not been the first time. He worked when he did Twilight Zone the movie. If I remember rightly, I think he had part of that, Steven Spielberg. Going right, I could be wrong on that. If you all remember the Twilight Zone the movie, you had John Landis, you had other producers and directors very well known to a story element of that. And this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like when I watch Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. So back in 1985, the first one was called, remember right there, Soul Train. And basically it's about an old man. And I think it's trying to keep it mild. It feels a bit like a poltergeist. Because it's this old man, his time's ready to come, he's about to go bye-bye and go to the afterlife. But again, because he wanted to make it for a longer audience, you don't get that, but you get a hint of that. And you get a train, picks him up to go to the afterlife. I didn't really mind that one, didn't mind it. It's what it was. There's one I did like, it was one with a lot of well-known actors. You had Tyler Sullivan and you had a lot of other good actors. And it was to do with World War II. When he had Pearl Harbor, and it's to do with this guy. He's trapped in an aeroplane, and his chances could be death. And he stood at doing drawings. He can draw animated pictures, but then the picture comes alive. It makes an animated reel, and it saves his life. And I actually liked that one. I thought it was a pretty tough little story. There's some really good acting in it. You had Dennis Hopper, not Dennis Hopper, I can't think of his bloody name now, but he'll come to me. Who's the main star of this? Am I making funny faces? Got something stuck in my tooth. But yeah, you had a lot of good actors, and it was a really good story. And there was another one. And this one, you could get away with it. It was starting to like an Alfred Hitchcock sort of film. I'm surprised they never made a film of this one, actually. It was one to do with a psychopath, and he was murdering women with you know the virus when you play a piano, and they called him the piano killer. That was it. That was word that then. They called him the piano killer, and what he did was he strangled women with the virus what you use for a piano. And you got this one guy, he touches your hand, he's like a psychic, he can see things before they happen and so on, and he actually sees the killer where he's blindfolded. He saw the murder before the murder, well, after the murder happened, before the murder, but he couldn't see the face proper. And it started to see, I never want to give that story away if I do decide to do Steven Spielberg's amazing stories. But that one I really, really love. I think it's such a damn good story. There's a lot of good twist to that one. I like that one. It was a good one. And there's a few other ones I could take them or leave them. I like the one where you've got this guy and he's started doing like a universal monster film, you know, when you had the old mummy films, and he's dressed up as a mummy. And these people think he's a real mummy, and he's not, and they're chasing after him with Botox and all that. And I had a few laughs at that one. It was quite a funny one. It was a very, very good one. And he's a father of a baby. So I like that one. I always remember another one, and this one you could take it as sort of like the Twilight Zone sort of story. It's this guy, he's in the 18th century war. He comes out into the modern time. He's got this piece of paper. He's got a diff to the ancestors. He diffs it to him. His horse is all over. The story is really, really fast paced. And then again, I don't want to spoil the twist of the ending, but the ending will like, wow, it will blow you away. Blow you away. Then there's a few I didn't really like, didn't think dated very well. There's one with a little derv, she gets killed, she comes back as a ghost to see a family and I'm old, I get it. But it was just depressing. I thought it was a very depressing one. Really was a depressing story. But there was a few I liked, a few I didn't think dated well. And it got to the second series, going into the late 80s. But sad to say, Amazing Stories didn't really rub off that well. And so he only ever did 2 seasons. He did series 1 to series 2. I think he was aiming, I could be right and wrong. I think he was aiming to do a 3rd series, but it didn't rub off, so he only ever did 2 series. But we've had a lot of good actors, a lot of well-known stars appeared in Amazing Stories. And maybe one day around the world I'll do that. But that was Steven Spielberg. It was my thoughts of Steven Spielberg and Amazing Stories. But into them, be smart, be safe. See you later.